Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you most kindly for joining us tonight. On the program, we focus on the growing tension in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. The standoff between PENGASSAN, Nupeng, and the Dangote refinery is not just another labor dispute. It is a flashpoint that could push Nigeria's economy closer to a shutdown. The unions are raising an alarm over conditions in the industry, hinting at strikes that could cripple fuel supply and, to a large extent, the Nigerian economy. We'll be speaking on the ongoing negotiations as the federal government mediates between the warring parties involved and what is at stake for the Nigerian economy. First, the latest update from Trust TV's Ibrahim Ismail.
We are right here at the headquarters of the NNPC in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, where members of PENGASSAN are protesting over a late sacking of 800 members at the Dangote refinery, which they kick against. Right now, it seems the rift is not over yet, and nobody knows where it's going to end, as PENGASSAN directed its members to comply with this strike, which may actually cripple economic activities in Nigeria.
We are not asking for anything other than Dangote reinstate the Nigerians that you have sacked in the country and allow them to be unionized. That is all we are asking for. We don't hate Dangote. We are happy that Dangote refinery has come to stay. We are happy. However, we are in a country that has rules and regulations. You are not bigger than Nigeria. So Nigeria must stand as a Nigerian. That's all we are here for. Solidarity, solidarity, injury to one, injury to all, that to one, Allah to all.
The union's industrial action could halt gas supply to the national grid, triggering a nationwide blackout.
Because you now see that you are not going to get the free money which you are getting before, and therefore Nigerians should pay for it. So government and security agencies should come into this, because it's a national security issue that they are trying to, because it will harm the economy. It will harm the economy, because if you stop supply of energy to the economy, do you know how much this economy make in a day? It's in billions, of dollars. So you can't afford to do that to Nigeria.
Later in the day, the Ministry of Labor and Employment convened an emergency meeting with PENGASSAN, Dangote Group, and government officials to seek a resolution.
This is the realization of the fact that what is happening today is very dear to this country, very dear to our economy, and very dear to the security of this nation. We have been informed that PENGASSAN is on strike, and a very serious one for that matter, because I never knew that they have closed NNPC itself and other subsidiaries of oil and gas industry. I think, I don't want to make any judgment, but we didn't know that this is the magnitude of this strike.
This is not the first time the oil sector is facing union unrest. In 1994, PENGASSAN strike drew a heavy crackdown from the Abacha regime after exports were crippled. As of the time of filing this report, talks between the parties were ongoing behind closed doors. Until an agreement is reached, Nigeria's oil and gas sector remains at a standstill. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Well, as you can tell, the economic repercussions is quite unimaginable to a great extent, because the key point or takeaway from this standoff is the fact that Nigeria's economy is about to face one of the biggest shocks it has faced if things do not come to a logical and reasonable conclusion between Dangote and the leading unions of the supply chain, that is PENGASSAN and Nupeng. And of course, as part of some of the updates there, the National Industrial Court has restrained PENGASSAN from its planned industrial action against the Dangote refinery. And this is one of many issues that is being negotiated right now by the federal government. There's also the picketing of the NNPC towers in Abuja earlier in the day in that report put together by Ibrahim Ismail, where the unions are basically asking Dangote to reverse the sacking of 800 Nigerian workers with the refinery, which they say is as a reaction of the planned unionization of some of these employees of the Dangote refinery. Let's bring in our guest now. Dr. Billy Gillis Harry is the national president of PETROAN, one of the industry players in the supply chain that will be caught, or that is currently caught in the middle of the fire. Dr. Gillis Harry, thank you so much as always for being available to us. Appreciate you very much for speaking to us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. Help us understand what is at stake here. As someone who understands the industry very well, what are we dealing with here, especially in the worst case scenario?
Well, I do not want to anticipate a worst case scenario. I do anticipate that between today and close of day tomorrow, with the government's intervention, which we are very grateful to the president and his team for intervening in a timely manner, that this issue will be resolved and everybody will be able to get back to work in a normal way. I believe that Dangote Refinery will rise up to the occasion and do what will be required to make sure that Nigeria is not economically suffering. And I believe that Dangote PENGASSAN also will also look at things from the perspective that the Nigerian citizen will be the ultimate, impacted, negatively impacted. So we hope that there will be a truce, and with the government's consistent intervention, this matter will be resolved.
And Doctor, just to situate the issues properly, who has the upper hand in these negotiations, in your view?
Well, there is nobody that has an upper hand. The thing is, there is a union that has been very useful to ensuring that the industry is stable. There is a new entrant in the business that has become a game changer that we're all very proud and happy of. That's the Dangote Refinery. We believe that with everybody getting to the discussion table and the government intervening, that Dangote will see the reasons for some of the requests that are made, and PENGASSAN will also see why there's the need to ensure that the ordinary Nigerians do not suffer.
As critical stakeholders in the supply chain itself, are you in any way caught between picking a side on this, or what roles are associations like yours, for instance, IPMAN and the others, playing to negotiate a truce?
Well, PETROAN will not at any time take any side. Our focus will always be what we can do to make efficiency the rule of the day, ensure that petroleum products are available at all times. With Dangote Refineries, refining capacity is giving us guarantees for. So at the end of the day, PETROAN will not take sides, but we will certainly appeal to all sides to look at the common good of Nigeria. But while we are doing that, we'll encourage Dangote Refinery to look at the realities of the case, to ensure that Nigerians are treated fairly, justly, and because there's quite a lot that Nigerians are giving up for this industry to thrive. We have our crude oil that's going to be sold in Nigerian naira instead of the US dollar. And we certainly do not want to bring in any imports that are not needed if Dangote Refinery's production is working and we're getting the product we need at the price and the business model that suits everybody. So we cannot take sides. We'd rather plead for the government to come in, plead for Dangote to see reason, and also plead for the union leaders to be able to look at how we can have a middle ground.
We've seen that there apparently is no love lost between the Dangote Refinery and the unions, whether it's NUPENG or PENGASSAN. We've heard the chairman of Dangote Group speak last week, and he didn't mince words when he talked about their threats and what they had to say about the operations of the refinery. What, in your view, is a fair deal that all parties can take back so that Nigerians can see a cessation of hostilities, or at least threats to the national economy?
A fair deal to me will mean that every participant in the value chain of the downstream industry does their part and do it very efficiently. For instance, Dangote is a giant that we're proud of, that we want to ensure that there is success recorded. This refinery will make Nigeria a very proud nation, Africa the place to go, because Dangote refinery can influence a lot of things in the global scene. And so we certainly will want Dangote to be at peace with every stakeholder, reconcile issues with all of the stakeholders, and ensure that we, at the last, as the last mile in the industry, we do not get caught in non-availability of petroleum product, and we are able to do our services and ensure that Nigerians are properly served as at when due efficiently, and also with high quality of petroleum product, as Dangote's refinery has a promise to give to us. So for me, a winning side would be Dangote refining, the depot owners ensuring that they stock products in all the various depots in the country, and then the distribution value chain of NATO, of Nupeng, the marketers, and then also as the retail outlet owners are able to do our bit and ensure that there is consistent petroleum product availability in Nigeria.
And Dr. Harry, do you think the National Industrial Court's decision, or ruling rather, earlier in the day, restraining PENGASSAN from proceeding with this planned nationwide strike action will have any sort of impact on what the association does next?
Well, it's a court of competent jurisdiction, and I believe that the judge who gave that ruling has his facts and evidence why he did that. And because there's already a ruling, it becomes sub judice for me to make any comment to it. But all I will just say is that all participants should put Nigeria first.
And Doctor, I know we've spoken about this. I mean, since the Dangote refinery came up on stream, and we talked about its possibility disrupting the markets as it is right now. Is this sort of back and forth negotiations around market dominance, around unionization, around concerns of existing structure, something that was inevitable?
Well, clearly, Dangote's entrance into the industry, it's a very, very welcome one. I personally, in my personal capacity, am very happy. I believe that as National President of PETROAN, my members across the country, we are very proud of Dangote. And we really, really want to contribute our quota to make sure that Dangote refinery is very successful. However, disruption of the market should not include excluding players. And that is where this argument is coming from. We already have players in the industry that have been efficiently delivering petroleum product to Nigerians. And there is nothing wrong with that system so far. So we need to get to the basics. One of it is that there are other private companies that operate. Shell is not a government company. ExxonMobil is not a government company. Sterling Oil is not a government company. And they all have succumbed to international best practice of ensuring that they are all unionized. And there is quite a lot of benefit for staff to be unionized at any level. Even at our level as retail outlet owners, we do not oppose unionization because it is a quid pro quo. It helps in ensuring that there is discipline in the system. So I really don't even understand what is the reason for this fight. If there is no ulterior intention to drive players out of the business and become the sole player with all the powers of the downstream, invested in one company or two. And that's not good for Nigeria. We all must understand that the more players we have, the more the industry has a lot of hands, the better our economy. And that's where we stand.
Yeah, and just to add, to the complexity of the current negotiations, the picketing of the NNPC towers in Abuja, as we reported earlier on, had a lot to do with the aggrieved concerns of members of the TUC who had demanded an apology and the reinstatement of 800 sacked workers by the Dangote petrochemical refinery. How do you negotiate something like that? Because the concern is that Dangote is a privately owned company, and whenever they want to right size or downsize, to use a more popular expression, they are well within their rights to do so. How do you see this negotiation going forward, especially around those 800 workers who, according to the TUC or some of the other unions, were people who were planning to join the union?
So let me put it in a proper perspective. As retail outlet owners national president, I have membership that is running to thousands of retail outlets that are registered members of PETROAN. And there is hardly any retail outlet that don't have minimum staff of 4. So assuming 1,000 retail outlets have minimum of 4 staff, that is already 4,000 staff. Then just one morning, we all wake up and put these 4,000 workers out of work by locking our gates. What do you think will be the result? NUPENG will react. PENGASSAN will react. Because we have also not followed the process of how we can remove them from service, even if we want to downsize. So some of these arguments that are making their rounds, I think they are just only playing to the gathering, because we already have a situation where a union, I don't want to call them because there is already a court action in place, decided that, look, there are some of your staff that have issues. And that resulted to a standoff that created problem until the government intervened and agreements were signed. That agreement was not obeyed 24 hours later. And now 800 staff or thereabout, from the reports we have heard, ran into PENGASSAN to ask for, look, I'm in your custody, protect me. And so they joined PENGASSAN. And just the next hour or the next day, they are all told you cannot get into your workplace. You are fired. And you call that downsizing? That is vindictiveness. So even if they were going to be put off because it's a private company, then Shell can also wake up one morning and put up 3,000 staff and tell us that they're downsizing. And ExxonMobil can do that. Chevron can do that. Sterling can do that. And everybody else will stay out of work. And then what will happen to the Nigerian oil and gas industry? So some of these arguments that make the round, for me, they are not patriotic, and they are not in any way looking for solution. The solution would be that everybody should return to status quo, and then let us discuss exactly what the matter is, and then we can follow procedures and processes so that the law will be obeyed, the timelines will be obeyed. But first things first, these staff should get back to work. And that's my opinion.
Now, a lot of Nigerians have reservations about the interests of the various parties involved in this quagmire or showdown, as the case may be. What is your reading of whether everybody involved is acting in good faith? Because Nigerians are beginning to pick their sides with a little understanding of what is at play here. because they see good actors and bad actors in this one. As far as they're concerned, they're more worried that any sort of action could be counterproductive to the price of petrol or other energy products out there, especially when we're talking about a possible shutdown of the Nigerian economy. Do you think all the actors involved, especially the key ones, are acting in good faith, or are they all about self-preservation and self-interest?
A couple of weeks.
I'm afraid it appears we're losing the connection or the quality of the connection to Dr. Billy Gillis Harry, the National President of PETROAN, which is the Petroleum Retail Owners Association of Nigeria. We're going to work on that to get him back on the program so that we can continue the analysis on the ongoing showdown between PENGASSAN, NUPENG, and Dangote, as negotiations, we understand, are still ongoing. A little earlier in the afternoon, around 3 to 4 p.m., the parties involved were in a closed-door meeting with the Minister of Labour, and the Minister of Finance was also in attendance, as well as a couple of other stakeholders, to negotiate what many believe would be a truce that would allow for the operations of all the parties involved to continue. I believe we have Dr. Harry back on. Thank you so much for sticking around. We lost the connection there for a moment. Your response to the question around the interest of the parties involved, whether they're acting in good or bad faith.
So I was trying to build a background so that we can understand what the play is. Now, there cannot be good or bad players. Everybody is doing what they know best how to do to ensure that the Nigerian economy is on course. Now, if Nigerians take sides at this time, I think they need to have very clear knowledge and information of what the possible outcomes will be. We have experience of other segments of the economy where similar experiments have been made, and we are no better for it. So when you want to take sides now, either on the side of industry stakeholder, on the side of Dangote, you need to carefully review the issue. I was on television with a young man who was very, very adamant on how to be very insolent. Now, that is the kind of thing that we should not see. We should be able to see reason. We should be able to review possibilities. We should be able to work together to bring a lasting result to this segment of the economy. Because energy is a very critical input into any country's growth. And we in Nigeria here, we are now talking about petrol and diesel. That is the mainstay of our over 60% energy sustenance input. So it's very important that we do not take sides, that we study what the scenario is and give the right advice to make sure that Nigerians are the better for it at the end.
And just situate the current situation looking at our history, because in some of the several reportings and some of the videos that have been going viral, Nigerians have been drawing parallels with what has happened before. I mean, clearly we've been in this position before in '94. The videos of former military head of state, General Sani Abacha, pretty much dissolving the leadership of the associations and unions back then and appointing a sole administrator as a reaction to the threats around export and operations within the sector, has been used to juxtapose what is currently happening right now. From your understanding of how past situations have been handled and the concerns that Nigerians have about what this situation could lead to as an outcome, how confident are you that we could, walk back from stepping over the cliff?
Well, we certainly will walk back from climbing over this cliff because we are not in a military dispensation. And I believe that even with the military dispensation, it was not a win-all. because then you will remember the years of the cocoris, and you will remember so much, back and forth of all these kind of things. There is really no need for those kind of distractions. At this time, what is needed is that Dangote refinery, the federal government, and NUPENG, PENGASSAN, MEMAN, DAPMAN, PETROAN, Nogasa, all of the stakeholder organizations should sit on the round table and come up with the best approach to serve Nigerians.
And we obviously see the body language of the Dangote refinery. Some would say some of its statements, its publications, its statement has been dismissive of the threats by PENGASSAN and NUPENG. And we've also seen the deployment of those CNG trucks. Help Nigerians understand the value addition and the level of disruption that we're going to see, because NUPENG has expressed some of its reservations. Dangote's partnership with MRS, for instance, has also been questioned vis-a-vis the relationship it has with the ownership of MRS and things like that. Give us as an analysis of what relationships like that could do in either making things smooth with regards to Dangote's relationship with PENGASSAN and NUPENG, or perhaps complicating it, especially if you factor in those 4,000 CNG trucks that will be injected into the supply chain.
In my view, 4,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 CNG trucks injected into Nigeria should be seen as we have. In our situation today, we have members of PETROAN, we have members of DAPMAN, we have members of Nogasa.
Dr. Harry. Dr. Harry.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, pardon the interruption. We lost the connection there for a moment, so you might have to recap what you were saying earlier.
Okay, sorry there. What I'm saying is that addition of 4,000 CNG trucks or 10,000 or 50,000 should only be seen as additional investment into the infrastructure, of transportation and distribution of petroleum products in Nigeria. Because the CNG trucks are not just only owned by Dangote refinery. It is also owned by DAPMAN members, by PETROAN members, by Nogasa members, and I believe even by MEMAN members and even NATO members. So CNG trucks are owned by different players in the industry, but that is a service for income, for revenue. So if any one of us comes up and say, I want to do this service for free, we have to be suspicious of what that intention is. That is where this whole problem emanated from, because you cannot be giving free service for what is yielding revenue to thousands and thousands of other owners. The body language of Dangote refinery, I have not seen him to see his body language. I only read what is being spoken by him or anybody that's representing him. I cannot in any way justify his ownership of MRS or MRS ownership of Dangote. But what we can say is that there are laws that give us value to understand that there are arm's-length laws, arm's-length principles that guide the industry as crossing from midstream to downstream to distribution to retail outlets to management of different parts of the industry. So I will not bother with the body language of any one corporate organization or individual. I'll bother with the body language of Nigeria and the government, and to call the government to ensure that every one of us behave accordingly, according to the law, and that we should do what must always give Nigerians the best in ensuring that our economy improves by the hour.
Let's bring in the government there, because for the most part, when you hear the comments of the Minister of Labour in the opening statement he made just before they went in for that closed-door meeting, there is that sense that the government is not necessarily in the driving seat of all the chaos and the commotions that we witness last week when each of these groups were taking shots at each other, calling each other and accusing each other of so many infractions. How confident are you that the government has what it takes to negotiate a positive outcome that not just serves the parties involved, but serves what's best for Nigeria and Nigerians?
Well, again, let me reiterate that every one of us in the stakeholder value chain of this industry wants to contribute our quota to make Dangote industry and Dangote refinery to be successful. It's up to him to accept our offer to work with him or not. We are learning a lot of things. We, as retail outlet owners, we have the number to be able to start a process of trying to make sure that we also pitch our tent with any one refinery, whether new or old, to be able to work. So every one of us have a very important and critical role to play in the industry. So yes, the government has a very strong role to play, and I believe that, because there is none of us operating in this value chain that is not licensed by the government. If the government did not license us, we would not be here playing this role. If the government did not set rules that we qualify.
It appears we are struggling with the connection to Dr. Billy Gillis Harry, the National President of PETROAN, as we're about to momentarily wrap up the conversation around ongoing negotiations between PENGASSAN, Peng, and Dangote refinery, one that is being mediated by the federal government. And of course, what it means for Nigerian economy, especially with the threat of an economic shutdown, something that could largely prove to be counterproductive. We're just getting the thoughts there of the National President of PETROAN. PETROAN, of course, one of the key stakeholders in the supply chain of Nigeria's downstream sector. All right, we're going to have to anchor the conversation there for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll focus on an issue that is reverberating outside of Nigeria, spotlighting an issue that is going on within Nigeria's borders around the insecurity, the death toll, and how religion is once again at the center of the conversation. Join us for more on this conversation after the break.